the fact is no one takes these stories seriously outside of us, the community that kind of grew up around, cryptids and Bigfoot and the people that are into this stuff. No one takes this seriously outside of this community and these people. So if we don't actively do our best to preserve the story as it actually happened, no one else will. And most of the stuff will just kind of disappear.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Broadcasting Seeds. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton. And today we have Seth Breedlove. Seth, tell us who you are, what you do, and where is the best place for people to find you?
Who I am. I am a independent independent filmmaker, I guess is the easiest way to put it. I run a company called Small Town Monsters, and we make documentaries about cryptids and legends and legendary creatures and events and stuff like that around the U.S. We've been around for 10 years. We've made, I don't know, we've made a lot. It's like, I saw a trailer. Someone on our social media girl put up a video on the account the other day, and I saw it, and it said over 30 movies, and I was like, yeah, that's accurate. I think it's closer to 40, but it's kind of hard to keep track of at a certain point. So yeah, we've made, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 40 films, and then we do weekly uploads on our YouTube channel as well. So we've produced, I think, probably in the neighborhood of like 300 hours worth of stuff over 10 years, not counting like the podcasts we did early on and stuff like that. So, and I'm a dad, and my hobby is I read comic books, and
Nice.
I do a podcast about comic books, and then I collect toys. And so I'm a pretty boring middle-aged man.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
What's the best place to find you guys?
Oh, good question. Yeah. I mean, our website is smalltownmonsters.com. I know that there's a lot of the DVDs and Blu-rays of the movies and stuff are available on there. The YouTube channel is probably the best place to go to find like kind of a one-stop shop for everything. Although it doesn't have everything. Like if you have a favorite streaming platform, we probably have something on it, as long as it's not Netflix. Other than Netflix, we're kind of everywhere. So you can find us on Tubi and Amazon and Apple TV and all that stuff.
Yeah, I just found Tubi. So I was like, I'd looked through and I was like, holy moly. Yeah, like there's so much content on there that you don't realize, which is pretty cool. So
yeah, they've been weird for the last year and a half, 2 years with independent docs. I've been told by like people behind the scenes that they've stopped accepting like paranormal specifically docs, but I've also been told it's just kind of a blanket lack of acceptance of independent stuff in general. So I don't know. We have, it's funny because we did just get picked up though. Donna the Dog Man's going to be on there, I think, in a week.
That's awesome.
So they're picking up newer docs still, but just it's way less common.
Oh, I wonder if someone bought them.
I forget what the official, the word I heard is they didn't like the fact that they were kind of becoming the butt of all these jokes about like crappy movies, that were on the platform. So they were getting more selective. I think it probably, that might be accurate, but I think people are really leery about documentaries right now. Amazon shut it down back in 2020 during the first election. They cut ties with independent docs in general. You couldn't get an independent doc on the platform because of the conspiracy theory stuff. So I don't know if it's something similar to that. It might be. But it also, it's a lot to QC, to quality control the level of content that they were being pitched.
Yeah,
Because I can tell you,
imagine.
because of, I mean, they were looking at doc dumps of like 1,000 hours worth of content at a time coming in, and that's a lot of stuff to try to QC and make sure it fits their standards. So could be that too.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, can't imagine. It's next to impossible. So
Yeah.
And we in this genre seem to be quite prolific at putting out, not everyone, but people can put out some pretty decent content.
Yeah.
Really rapidly. So, the overwhelm.
They can also
imagine.
put out some really bad content.
Oh God, yes, of course we can.
I think that's like, that was the other big thing with Tubi that I kept hearing, was that it was just the amount of like stuff they were getting that was nowhere near.
That just sucks.
Yeah. The quality standards. But I agree. Like, I do think I've seen more quality stuff in terms of video content. I've seen more quality than I've seen like crap. So, in this,
it just makes you wonder how much stuff is just not seen. There's just tons.
Yeah.
It's one of those things too. Like, I know a couple people that are like in the, I would even call them like D movie genre type folks, and I don't understand how they make money. Because some of their films are just awful, and I don't know. It's
a weird thing. It's like that. You want to encourage people to follow their passion, but you also want to be like, maybe you should consider learning how to do this.
Right. I mean, even like big name actors are in awful movies. Like you go through like someone like, just an example, someone's movieography I went through the other day was Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And something like 80% of his movies have been completely horrendously awful. Not even just like, okay, no, horrific, bad. So, and most movies lose money. So I don't see, like, I'm like, where's the investment here? But anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's a scam.
Yeah.
That side of it I always find funny. Like, I think the amount of people I've known who've gotten involved in like bad investments with film, it's too many to count. We've always tried to stay, like we do the Kickstarter every year, but that's basically like an extended pre-order campaign. I mean, like we try to give more back than people put in.
Sure.
We've never really taken investments because we work on such a tight budget that if you take an investment, you're starting already in the hole, to a level that you might not get out of. So, it's so up and down too. Like, so much of this stuff doesn't hit, like projects that I talk to people, someone will tell me like their favorite movie, and I'll be like, oh, thank you for watching it. Cause that was a huge bomb. That
was an awful bomb.
Yeah, that was we lost so much money on that. Thank you for watching it. A lot of them were like that. But I mean, end of the day, the good thing is AVOD is really, like your Tubies and stuff have really given a second life to a lot of projects. Like Momo was a huge flop when it came out on Amazon and stuff, and then over time, it kind of found an audience through, either subscription Prime or the ad supported stuff like Tubi and even YouTube.
Man. So, before we get too far off here, I ask the first question I ask, which we kind of went in, we're already 9 minutes in, is so obviously Small Town Monsters, it's in the name. Cryptids and other high strangeness, right? It's just what I like to call it. What got you into this world of high strangeness?
I didn't have an awareness of this stuff until like 2002. And that was just because of the Richard Gere Mothman Prophecies movie. My
Mhm.
sister brought home a copy of John Keel's book, but it was like a paperback version, and it had the poster as the cover
Yeah.
instead of like, whatever fantastic artwork was gracing the cover of that book.
Yeah.
But that was the first time I can remember being like, oh, this is like a thing. Like people actually think they're encountering like real aliens, and it's not just fiction. That was the first thing I can remember. And then, maybe like half a decade passed or something, and I had a friend that ran the tape room, the sound booth at my church with me. And him and I were in there, and he was like, uh, he came in one day and he goes, You seem like you're kind of weird, like me. And he's like, you probably like this stuff. And he gave me a DVD he had burned, or a CD-ROM or something, and it had a bunch of documentaries from television about UFOs and Bigfoot and stuff like that. And I remember going home and watching the entire thing over the course of that day, and then I just kept rewatching it over and over. And then I was fully invested. There used to be a library right down the road from where I worked at the time, and where I worked at the time was from my parents, so I kind of did what I wanted. And so I'd walk to the library and get middle of the day. I'd go walk to the library and get books on Bigfoot or whatever. I remember there was a case book. I think it's called the Bigfoot case book, and I brought it back to the store, to the building where I worked, and I sat in the back with my feet up on my table, uh, and read that book. And somewhere in that book was a section on the Minerva monster.
Mhm.
And reading that kind of sparked a memory from when I was way younger. We used to have a friend, Gary Reneker, who would hang out with us when we were kids. And he was older than us, but he knew all about the neighborhood and stuff and the town. And I could remember him talking to us about the Minerva monster when we were a kid, when we were kids. And then I got excited, because then I was like, okay, so there's like a history of this stuff in this area. And then I started really diving into it. And I told the story in On the Trail of Bigfoot, but that sparked an interest in me, as far as Bolivar was concerned, because that's where I grew up. And I started looking into Bolivar Bigfoot reports and found out there were some. And around the same time, the guy that gave me that CD-ROM or DVD, whatever it was, had started telling me about how his dentist had a ranch outside of Bolivar, and she was a sighting witness. Like, she'd seen Bigfoot. And I was like, oh,
Gotcha.
that's cool. That's cool. And but then the story kept evolving, and it got to the point she came to my wedding. I was getting married. She was also the dentist of my ex-wife, and she came to the wedding, and Don and I grilled her for like 30 minutes during the middle of the reception about her Bigfoot sighting. And it turned out it wasn't just like a sighting, it was like this ongoing activity that the entire family had been experiencing for like
Wow.
20 years.
Oh, like generational.
Yeah, her kids had experienced it and seen these things, and it was a wild story. Like, she was telling us about, like, that they had a ranch, so they had horses, and they would follow the Bigfoots would come up to the back of the house, and they'd follow the Bigfoots on horseback to a cave where they lived, and just stuff that seemed really out there. And but she was a really legit witness, and her husband was a district attorney at the time. And
Yeah.
so they were very believable, but the stuff they were saying was pretty wild. And then I started driving around down there, all hours. Like, like I said, I worked for my parents down in Bolivar, so I could kind of do what I wanted. So I'd drive around on those back roads, and I'd talk to people. If I saw someone walking or whatever, I'd pull over and try to talk to them and ask them if they'd experienced anything, if they'd ever seen a Bigfoot, you know, just your average everyday questions. And and I started meeting people who had, and then I came to find out that like during the 70s, there had been a huge rash of sightings down on down in and around that same area where the ranch was, and it kind of tapered off in the 90s, but which makes sense because that area was all privately owned strip mine land, and they had only recently started selling off small parcels of it for development. Today it's actually, there's a whole development back there with I don't know how many houses, probably 30, 40 houses, people living. So I'd be shocked if I still, if there was still activity going on down there. Cause on the one side of that area is 77 cuts right through there. And so a major highway is running right through there. But definitely at one point in time, that was a very active area. And that got me excited. And then I wanted to learn more about it. And what really got me excited beyond that was the historical stuff, like the earliest reports in the state of Ohio. Because I thought if I could establish, at least for myself, that there's a history of this stuff happening here, maybe there's more validity to it than what I thought. And so I started, looking into that side of things, and I found a lot of different newspaper articles and just archival material relating back to like wild men and things like that. The Norwalk ape, Gallipolis, Ohio has this big sighting from the 1800s that's considered one of the earliest reports
Wow.
in the country. So yeah, that's where it really got me fully invested in it.
Yeah. I'm shocked at how many sightings there are in eastern Ohio. Like it's wild. There's so much there in western PA, it's like this
Is that where you're
region. I'm in upstate New York, but I do a lot of research in Allegheny National Forest. So
Eastern Ohio is weird too, because especially like up near Mark Matsky, who does a lot of stuff with us. He lives up near Paynesville, kind of in that area, and it's not really, you're kind of on the outskirts of Cleveland. It's not a place you would expect there to be activity, but there's activity there that goes back like a century at least. Major flaps have happened in that part of the state. And then you start looking at like Cuyahoga Valley, which is this national park that's tucked in between two of the biggest metropolitan areas in the state. It's right in
between Cleveland and Akron, right?
Yeah. In fact, like the Akron and Cleveland Metro Police actually patrol like sections of the park, because it's a very weird national park, because you've got there's the national park, but then you can be in the national park and all of a sudden you'll hike past a sign that says you are now in the Akron Metro Park. And it's a very odd, so they have, cops patrol that from those two cities, but it's also like in terms of the state and what is reported and then, regurgitated to the public. The BFRO has more reports from Cuyahoga Valley National Park than any other section of the entire state of Ohio. Definitely any other park. But I really think if you just look at like county by county, the counties that park sits within are probably three of the biggest, counties for reports in the state, which is, that's also just the fact that there's so many people there.
Exactly.
So people are going to make stuff up, obviously, but I've interviewed witnesses who've had encounters in Cuyahoga Valley that were very believable. And I've experienced stuff there to some extent, nothing crazy, but enough that it makes me curious as to what's actually going on there.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense.
No, right. I mean, it's one of those things too, like the big hotbed in Pennsylvania, Western PA is right outside Pittsburgh, and so, as you know, a lot of it has to do with, population density as well, because
Sure.
like we have the Adirondack Park up here and it's massive. But the thing is, there's no freaking people.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
like,
that's one of the reasons it gets overlooked.
yeah,
Like the Adirondacks gets overlooked on like almost every level.
yeah.
It gets
I've had
overlooked
tons of not tons, but I've had a few incidents or what would you call them, encounters up there. But
Mhm.
I'm out there looking for it. And
Yeah.
but
Where do you go?
so one of the places I really focus, because there's just so much empty land, is what's called the Tug Hill Plateau.
Mhm.
And it's like the foothills of the Adirondacks, right? So you've got places like, it's a sportsman's haven, and it's literally all state land.
Yeah,
Because Adirondacks, that's a state park. It's not
you're right.
people think it's like a national park. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's all New York State land. But basically, if you go from I-81
Mhm.
in Oswego County and just go east,
Yeah.
as far like up to like Watertown, or even up farther to what's called Governor, down to like the Oswego Onondaga County line, and
Mhm.
just go east, it's nothing but
Yeah.
forest and farms. That's it.
That's what, when I made Beast of Whitehall, that was the thing that like blew me away about it. Was I grew up traveling,
Mm-hmm.
around the country, especially East Coast and South, the southern states. So my parents owned a bookstore and we did book shows every weekend.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up sleeping in hotel rooms and stuff like that. And so we
Yeah.
we traveled all over the place. And somehow in all that time I'd never been to the Adirondacks. And so to drive 5-6 hours out of Ohio and be in that level of like isolated wilderness
Yeah.
was wild to me, because you don't hear about, that's what I'm saying, you don't hear about the Adirondacks enough. It's
No.
on any level. Tourism, it should be a tourist hotbed. And it
'Cause
is
it's
some of
gorgeous.
those places. Yeah. Some of the places are like Lake Placid's kind of overrun, but Lake George is too, but
right.
Lake George
But
is gorgeous. But like, it still just seems to me like that should be, man, everyone should be going there. That place is beautiful.
yeah,
But
that whole, and this is all of like upstate New York. It's like, people don't understand that it's just desolate. It is,
Yeah.
there's no one, there's not a lot. Obviously in the summer it gets and then winter sports too, like places like up in Old Forge, and you have skiing and places
Yeah.
like that. But other than that, man, it is just a unexplored hotbed of, in my opinion, cryptid, but really Bigfoot.
Mhm.
But yeah, either way.
Yeah, I want to do more up there. We're always talking. Mark, my friend Mark, goes up there multiple times a year now to hike, ever since we discovered it together through
Yeah,
Small Town Monsters, and that's like his place now, is to go up there and go hiking. And I'm like,
because it's quiet. It is
yeah,
quiet.
yeah.
So.
See, I got distracted. I got distracted by the Smoky Mountains, so that's been my jam for
Which,
the last few years.
again, amazing. Love the
Yeah.
Smoky Mountains.
Yeah, but that's the same. That's what you don't. The downside to the Smokies is Gatlinburg and I like Gatlinburg. I've grown up going there, but it's overrun with people and they're all over, the parks now. The
Yeah.
park. It was so exciting to me to discover like my family, my dad's side of the family, they're all from the Bryson City area. And so to discover that side of the park, I was like, wow, this is amazing. So now like my wife and I, every year for the last like 4 years, we've gone to Gatlinburg as like our couple's work trip. Like we'll go down and we'll do some filming and stuff, but then we're also on a vacation. We stopped this year. We just went to Bryson City. So I was like, God, I don't really want to deal with the tourism and stuff. And You can go over to Bryson City and the food's better. There's less people. You can go on a hike and you're not, getting bowled over by tour groups.
Everybody.
Yeah. And that is a upside to the Adirondacks too, I guess, is that I know there definitely is an influx, especially in the high peaks wilderness. Like it does seem like that's kind of blown up in recent years.
It has. I think a lot of it has to do too is that people, it's kind of cool that people are getting, they're touching grass and getting out there and hiking and doing real stuff. And so I don't want to dissuade any of that, right? Especially because the Adirondacks have all the mountains over 4,000. So what is it? The 49ers or 48, they call it, or whatever the heck it is. There's 40 something peaks, the high peaks region. So people, they gamify it. And that's part of, I think that's part of a lot of the traffic up there now. But with that being said, sightings have gone way up in recent years. So that's kind of cool.
It is like, but places like Wells get overlooked then, because Wells
absolutely.
is like Wells is crazy. You go up into the hills outside of Wells and you're in the middle of nothing. It's very cool. It's like, I want to do more there because we just haven't done enough. We did a Beast of Whitehall, and then we did On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Journey. But we kind of I haven't managed to get back up there to do much. So that'll probably, when I'm done with my Smokies stuff, that's probably where I'm going to go next.
Yeah. I like the North Carolina side of the Smokies, just because it's quieter.
Yeah.
Which is pretty, I was just down there actually this past weekend, not there. I did drive through Asheville, but, I was down at Clemson, and drove through there's a national forest just up from there. I'm trying to remember the name. I think it might be Sumter, but I think they changed the name. Either way. And I stopped and it was pretty cool. It's just that's a pretty good area too, just because of the water. So much water involved there. The lakes along.
None of them are natural. That's the weird thing.
Exactly. And that's one of those things, especially that hidden history side of it.
Yeah.
It gets me.
Yeah. That's the
I'll probably be doing an episode about that area because I was just down there, filmed a little bit, took a bunch of pictures. It was awesome. So
nice. Yeah. I love that. I love that area, but learning about it has been the real thrill for me, is like just learning the history of it. Like I just found out about that fact that like none of those lakes are naturally formed.
No,
I had no idea. And it all ties back to that Alcoa aluminum stuff.
Yep.
Which I've only ever heard like the negative side of the dams and all that, because I had family that lived in Fontana. The Fontana Lake and Fontana Dam, there's like multiple towns at the bottom of that, at communities that were at the, that are now at the bottom of Fontana Lake. That's the next episode of my Smoky Mountain thing that I'm working on, is all about Fontana. That just keeps me coming back. And then the Bigfoot stuff almost becomes just gravy.
Exactly.
on top of it.
Right.
On top of that. And you can connect with my family roots and stuff. That's been cool. Cause I'd never spent a lot of time thinking about my ancestors or any of that until I went down there. And, I grew up hearing about like my family's connection to the Smokies, but I hadn't realized like, man, my family was in there, 100 years before there was a Bryson City. They were living outside of town. I mean, it would have been them and the Cherokee. Like there wouldn't have been a lot of
that's
people
just
there
wild.
at that time. Yeah.
It's wild. And the whole Cherokee thing, man, that's a rabbit hole that I think will just never ends. It's wild.
Yeah. It's hard to get, like we've interviewed, indigenous people from different cultures and tribes all over the world at this point. I mean, British Columbia and out in the PNW and stuff like that. I have had the hardest time getting through the barriers that the Cherokee put up, which I guess is understandable. Like if you look at it,
Yeah, right.
it's tough to get those barriers down, and to learn about it. But we did it with On the Trail of Bigfoot the Ancients. We were able to interview a number of indigenous people. But I haven't managed to get there yet with this show I'm doing, with the Smoky show I'm doing. But I haven't tried yet as much either. I've mostly been focusing on, I'm still trying to uncover like my personal connection to the people down there. Like the episode we just put out ended with this factoid that my dad figured out after we had shot an episode together. My dad was down there with me, and we had found this old cemetery outside of this community called Needmore, and Needmore is where like a lot of the Breedlove settled. And it doesn't exist anymore. It was basically wiped out in the 60s and 70s because of those dams. The Needmore sat right on the Little Tennessee River, so that was one of the rivers that they dammed. And so Needmore was abandoned, and then it's gone, and today you can't find anything. There's barely anything left. So we were down there trying to find a cemetery where it'd be one of the oldest cemeteries in the area, and it was a place where people were buried that we might have had some connection to, but we weren't really sure. I just wanted to film it because I knew it was the oldest cemetery and it would have had actual Needmore residents in it. So we found this cemetery after like hours of searching. We find this cemetery and then we film it, and then I put the episode out, and then my dad was watching the episode and he noticed a headstone on the final shot of the cemetery. There's like a pan, and it kind of ends at a headstone in the foreground that said Matilda or Melinda Freeman. And my dad, like, something triggered in his memory because he knew Freemans were connected to Breedloves. So then I got Heather to start looking into, Heather's our researcher. I got her to start looking into what the connection is between that specific Freeman and my family. And then it turned out that the headstone at the end of the episode that I inadvertently filmed is my great grandma.
Oh wow, so, that's so cool. Yeah, that's super cool. Though.
Random like coincidence, and then like that uncovered all this stuff that was kind of interesting about how she had died the same day as her son and her husband Thomas. And so the three of them died on the same day of smallpox. And even if you go down to the family cemetery, it's kind of funny down there outside of Bryson City, right by the Little Tennessee. There's Breedlove Mountain, there's Breedlove Lane, and then there's Breedlove Cemetery. And if you go to the cemetery, there's tons of infant graves, from flu and smallpox and stuff like that. But that just like, I've learned a lot about my family through this that makes it, I get why people become obsessed with like genealogy.
Yeah.
Because it tells you things about yourself. Like there's been a lot of characteristics I've learned about from like ancestors where I'm like, oh, I'm that way. Like travel has always been a huge part of my family, apparently going back to the 1800s, because I had a relative down there who had he had something like 17 or 18 kids, something like that. And they were just constantly moving around like coast to coast. Like they went all the way out to the West Coast and back. And I was like, well, at least I know that's in our blood. That's just part of who we are, apparently.
Wild. That's just
I don't know
wild.
what I'm talking about at this point. I'm just rambling.
I don't know. You're great. This is about you, man. I do have a question though. So with this all being said, what was the moment that you realized that you wanted to turn like cryptid documentaries into like your life's work?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. The way you worded that is so specific. I don't know what the moment it was. I know that I have like a defect where I can't. I inevitably all my hobbies become something I like.
A business.
Yeah, it's stupid and I don't get it, but it's like something I do where like inevitably I just I'm more invested in the hobby than I should be, or I expected to be, or whatever.
I'm exactly the same way. I totally
Really?
understand. Yes. And
Yeah.
it drives my wife insane. It drives her insane, but
yeah. Well, that was like one of them because like I was working medical billing at the time, and I I floundered around after high school. I'd wanted to be a filmmaker all through high school. And that was going to be, like I met my director of photography. He worked at Borders at the time. And I was sitting outside on a bench with a New York Film Academy flyer. And he came up to me and he was like, "You want to be a filmmaker?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, so do I." And that's like how we hit it off when we were kids. And so I've always wanted to do it, but out of high school, I wasn't more. I mean, I'm like shockingly stupid. Like I'm one of the dumbest people I know. Like I barely graduated high school.
which
I'm
doesn't mean
not.
you're stupid by any stretch of the imagination, but I understand. Yes.
Yeah. Just I have a hard time in taking knowledge. But I just didn't know what I was doing. So for a long time, I just worked for my parents, and then my parents' business went under in like 2005, 2006. And then I had to do something else. So I did, I floundered around at a bunch of different dead end jobs. I drove for FedEx and all that kind of stuff. And did landscaping. And I'm not saying FedEx is a dead end job.
Right. Just
they
not for
fired
you.
me after 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So so it was definitely not for me. But I did all that, and then I was doing medical billing, and I was able to do it because I'm like OCD and I can just sit there and focus on weird stuff. And it was a boring job. And so I listened to podcasts the whole day. And at some point I started listening to paranormal podcasts. And, like I can remember very early on being a big fan of like Jim Harold and Paranormal Podcast and Astonishing Legends and all that kind of stuff. Astonishing might not have been around yet. I don't think Astonishing started until right before us. But that's what really kicked it up. And then I was also writing for the newspaper at the time. I was a freelance reporter, and my articles were about small businesses and independent businesses and stuff like that. And I was like, my approach to this would be kind of interesting to do something similar with like Bigfoot witnesses. And so that was where I formulated the idea for Small Town Monsters. And then I put together a book proposal called Small Town Monsters. And I sent it around to all the big publishers at the time. Anomalous was... This cracks me up because Anomalous at that time was the big one. I think they had published one of Lyle's books and maybe something by Lauren Coleman or whatever. And I was like, for sure I can do this because I'm already a writer. I've got the pedigree. And I sent all these book publishers my proposal, and all of them rejected it. Anomalous was rude about it.
Wow.
like when they rejected me too. The funny thing about that was I went to Lauren Coleman's International Cryptozoology Conference in like 2017. And the guy that ran Anomalous was there. And he comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, I've wanted to meet you forever." He's like, "You ever think about writing a book?" And I was like, "Yeah, I submitted a proposal to you guys back in the day." He was very excited about publishing something by me at the time. I didn't do it, but
yeah, it's wild.
The sad thing about what I do now is I don't get to write as much. But I've considered going back to the drawing board with something, especially because we publish books now. I can't remember what got me on this frame of. Oh, you asked about when I knew I wanted it to be a living. or
Yeah.
career or whatever. Yeah, I took what I put in that book proposal, and that informed the first probably 15 movies we made. Like not just in
Like
subject
turned
matter.
into your business plan,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, because Minerva was in the book, and so was Whitehall, and so was Boggy Creek, and so was Mothman at Point Pleasant, and so was the Chestnut Ridge, and so it was literally like case by case. We kind of went through the book and did the stories that were in it. There was a Flatwoods chapter, and all that stuff. So now we made Minerva in 20. We started filming in 2014. It finished and came out in 2015, but there was no point prior to the premiere of the movie in Minerva, Ohio itself, where I realized I was making a movie. I don't know why that was, if it was because
that's
it was a
wild.
documentary and it wasn't like, it just never connected. And then in Minerva, we did an event that kind of surrounded the launch of the movie. And that even, it's crazy to talk about because even in 2015, there was really no way to make a money on
Right.
on a movie. You really, the streaming platforms weren't open to us yet. And so you had to do everything physically. So we were selling copies of that movie on DVD and Blu-ray, and that's how we were going to make our money back on it. And so we, like I said, I had worked for the newspapers, so I had all these contacts at the newspapers. And because of that, we got all this publicity, free publicity for the movie leading up to it. I mean, we had like 60 some cover stories in newspapers across the state over the course of months, like leading up to the launch of the movie. I did radio shows and TV, morning TV shows and all that stuff promoting the movie, but it just never
The
hit me that
wheel. Yeah.
it never hit me that it was a movie until the day of the premiere. And then we were in the back. We had a bunch of sound issues trying to get this movie premiere to get off the ground. We were showing it at this little movie theater in downtown Minerva. And I was backstage with someone trying to figure something out, and one of the other people that was helping run the event came back and they were like, "Have you seen the front of the theater?" And I said no, and they were like, walk out. You got to go out the side of the building and down around the block. And so I go out through the back and I went down around the block. And when I came around the corner of the back of the movie theater, I saw a line stretching across the street. And I was already like a quarter of a block down. I mean, I was pretty far from the entrance of the theater even there. And it reminded me of those photos of like Jaws and Star Wars when it came out, and I was like, oh, we made a movie. That was like the first time I connected that this is like a movie and people are excited about it. So,
That's awesome.
I'm not comparing what I did to
but
Star Wars,
it's still, that's there's some pride there at least to kind of like,
keep it going.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the moment. I was just like,
pride's not the right word, but yes.
Yeah. I think I said that day, I think we need to do more of this. So we just kept doing. Then we went and did Whitehall, and then Boggy was filming. I mean, we started filming Boggy Creek Monster less than a year after that premiere. And so in the interim, Beast of Whitehall came out, so.
Yeah.
And that movie was big for us too. Like you're in upstate New York. We had, there's a channel outside of, I don't know where they're out of, Saratoga Springs or something.
Yeah.
It's called Look TV. I don't know if it's still around, but they contacted us and wanted to show the movie. And I said, they had run a news broadcast that I wanted to use in the movie. And I was like, I'll give you the rights to show this movie, like whenever you want. In exchange for the rights to use this clip. And then also you have to promote our premiere. And so they did this whole, like, we went to their studios and did the morning news and all that stuff. And then they showed Beast of Whitehall for 2-3 years, like almost daily from what I heard.
Wow.
on Look TV. And so I don't know how many people have seen Beast of Whitehall. Like I think
Yeah.
it's probably more than I think.
I mean, I've watched it, so
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
For a long time that was kind of my favorite. It's still one of my favorites just because of but there was so much that went into it, like making it behind the scenes. We filmed it twice. I've talked about that before, but
That's wild.
Yeah, I got in a huge fight with the guys that filmed it with me the first time, and they took the footage.
Ooh.
And so I was like, well, I believe what they thought I would do is just not film, not, just call it a day and consider it a loss. And instead I got my dad and Brandon and the three of us drove back to Whitehall and shot the entire movie in a day and a half.
Wow.
And then used what footage I still had from my first trip there.
Yep.
As well. So it's an odd movie because I'm also like, I had never shot anything. The first movie had been shot entirely by Alan and Jesse. So I'd never shot a movie, never really used a lens with like not fixed, but exposure, and didn't know f-stops, didn't know any of that.
Nice.
Didn't know how to edit. I edited that movie on Premiere Elements, which is like the the borderline free version of Adobe.
Yeah, right.
And so to go from that to like the premiere in Whitehall, some guy came up to me and said that was the most people he had ever seen in Whitehall, New York at that time. Since then, it's blown up because of the calling contest and all that stuff. But back in 2016, when we did that premiere, this guy came up to me and was like, I've never seen this many people in Whitehall.
It's crazy. How much of your process is journalistic versus like cinematic?
It's 50-50 in terms of the run up to the movie. Maybe more. When you ask that question, like what are you thinking?
Like, because there's so much of this that it's like you had said that you had never really shot before, like with Whitehall. So there's all the run up, like, because during this you've got to have a story. Right. And it's whether you're doing the research and then interviewing people, you know what I mean? Or, are you thinking more in a cinematic type frame where it's like the shots are more important? You know what I mean?
No, no, it's definitely not that. For me, I've always been like, we're very run and gun. We have to be, even today. Because despite what I've seen online, we are not a $1 billion company.
Right.
You have to be very aware of like budgets and all that stuff at all times, or you put everyone out of a job. Yeah, I would say, especially back then, it was way more about what interviews can we get? How do we get here and get this interview? And there wasn't. I do remember during the lead up to Beast of Whitehall, though, I watched a bunch of like police procedurals, because something about that case in particular seemed to like remind me of like a police procedural. But I don't think you would see that. It is funny when people, unless we're being really overt about it, I don't think you typically see cinematic influences in our stuff, unless it's like Momo, where we're like, this should be obvious what we're doing.
Right.
So no, the focus, I guess, is ultimately all journalistic. And then I do try to lead. I mean, now I'm blessed with like a crew, so I can be a little more focused on the cinematic side of it.
Right.
And it's Heather's job to kind of get people
more like the art side of it.
Like,
you know what I mean.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we had more time. I was just thinking about that today. I wish I had more time to really focus on the creative side of it, but it's just not. It's not a reality just based on how this stuff goes for us.
Well, it's driven too by, you have to make a living, right?
Yeah.
People have to make a living. And sometimes it's that, the starving artist thing is real. And
Yeah.
if you focus on certain things, like you have a formula basically, right? So you guys knock out and it's not that it's like some conveyor belt, but
No, it feels like it.
there is a flow, right? That
Yes.
happens. So
Yeah, there has to be, and there is with anyone who makes stuff about these topics,
because
whether
things have to get done.
Yeah, you kind of, especially when you've done it for 10 years and you've got 300 hours under your belt, like you do kind of have it's almost like muscle memory from project to project. But the danger there is if you can't rest on that, because there has to be constant improvement. And this is something we just had a retreat back in November for the STM crew, and it was, like we hadn't had one in 2 or 3 years where we got everyone together. And I had always wanted to do one of these retreats where it's not just us like sitting around talking and hanging out and having a good time, but it's also like a chance for us to learn about cinematography or whatever.
Yeah.
We did this retreat, and we had a guy come and basically give us a refresher on cinematography basics, like the stuff you learn when you're first learning how to use a camera, and like framing and composition and exposure and all that kind of stuff. And then we had a genealogist. She spoke about genealogy because that's been like a big topic of interest for me for the last few years, and I think it's important for everyone on our crew to have that same kind of like respect for history, and especially your own family's history.
Absolutely.
So that, and then we had a film producer, who's a producer at a company here in Ohio. He came and spoke to us about the industry. And then Mark Maskey talked about storytelling. And so we were able to like spend a whole day, just kind of like 2 days, learning and trying to better ourselves, because ultimately that is a danger. When you do this stuff at the rate we're doing it, you can get to a point where you're no longer trying new things or even thinking creatively enough. And sometimes that's just the nature of the projects you're working on too. Like there were projects I've worked on where I just was not as emotionally invested as I would like to be. And so you do kind of have to, like feel your way through that in a very uncomfortable. I don't like that process when that's the case. So I've tried to for a very long time. And there aren't a lot of projects where I've had that happen, maybe 3 or 4, but there's been 3 or 4 for sure. But then I hit like Kinderhook. I just finished editing our Kinderhook creature movie. And it's the most fun, creatively fulfilling project I've had in a very long time. Like
that's amazing.
Probably 8 or 9 years, going back to the earliest days. It was just, and it was all driven. It's funny because I've known Bruce for a very long time, and I've known the Kinderhook story for a very long time. I mean, actually, the first time I learned about it, we were filming Beast of Whitehall, and Paul Bartholomew was like, "Hey, do you know about Bruce Hallenbeck and the Hallenbeck family and their encounters in Kinderhook?" And I didn't. So like he educated me on that. And then I wanted to cover it. Then we covered it a little bit and On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Journey. But I was like, Bruce told me all this stuff that happened kind of ancillary to that story. And I was like, God, that's the story that needs told. And so when we started publishing his book, I contacted Bruce and asked him, I was like, hey, we're starting a publishing wing at STM. Would you have any interest in writing like basically an autobiography? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to. So he wrote his Kinderhook creature book. And then maybe like 2 weeks before we went to film the movie, I read the book again. And as I'm going through the book, I was like hit over and over with this kind of like melancholy of the story that maybe like some people wouldn't pick up on, but I did. And this kind of like recurring theme of the loss of his grandma, and that was the stuff that I really wanted to dig into. And so when I when I went to make the movie, that was like my focus was very much on Bruce as a person who happens to be the line came to me in the very early stages of editing, ordinary people experiencing extraordinary things. It was something like that. And it's not going to be in the movie. It's not in the movie. It's not going to be in the marketing. It was just this mantra that I would repeat to myself anytime I would get kind of lost. Because sometimes it's weird to be editing a movie that is about Bigfoot, but I'm spending 45 minutes talking about Bruce's grandma's death or something, it just feels weird, but it's like, well, that still fits within essentially the directive of the film. And so I don't know if that's what it was with that movie or what, but I had a really great experience editing that movie. Just something where like every day I would come down here and sit down and I'd spend, 6 hours, 7 hours, tinkering with it, and it was fun and fulfilling in a way that a lot of times this stuff might not be.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it seems as though, well, you're headed in the direction too, where you're really telling, that's the story behind the story, right? And the history of everything. And I know that you have a couple people that also do that, like Alex Petikoff is huge into like his family history.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I interviewed him, I don't know, it was a little while ago, but he was just about to go to Europe. Mm-hmm. And I spent a bunch of time in Bosnia, and that's, he's from that area. So either way, I guess what I'm kind of, since we're getting closer to the end, I want, what really separates Small Town Monsters from other cryptid or paranormal media out there? In your view?
I think it's like a commitment to, it's funny you'd ask this. I just did this whole, like, during that retreat, I put together like a mission statement for STM.
Right.
And, I did it because it seemed weird that we didn't have one, because everyone knows behind the scenes, we all know like what our approach to this stuff is and how it's different from like what's on television. I think what sets us apart is like a commitment to documenting this stuff, not just telling a story or regurgitating, an account, a spooky story or something. It's about, and not even like the artistic side of the filmmaking or whatever, but our approach to letting people speak for themselves without trying to steer, the audience in any one direction.
Steer the story, right?
Yeah, that's always been like the biggest thing for me. But I do think, I grew up, my parents were involved in battlefield preservation because they owned a Civil War book business, a historic. It eventually evolved into like just a full scale historical book business. But I have vivid memories of my dad wearing a shirt that said, "Have a nice day, shoot a developer." And so when I was a kid, preservation of history was really important to my parents. And the fact is, no one takes these stories seriously outside of us, the community that kind of grew up around, cryptids and Bigfoot and the people that are into this stuff. No one takes this seriously outside of this community and these people. So if we don't actively do our best to preserve the story as it actually happened, no one else will. And most of the stuff will just kind of disappear. That was the goal behind the book. I mean, even when I created the book, it was that. So it's always been about preservation of history, and then hopefully we do that, in a way that engages people and keeps them invested in what we're doing.
Absolutely. So what's next for you and Small Town Monsters that you're excited about?
In 2 weeks, I leave to go film On the Trail of UFOs season 2, which we haven't done a episodic on the Trail of UFOs show since 2020. So kind of a big deal for that. Our Kickstarter launches February 5th. We're funding On the Trail of UFOs season 2, which is an 8-episode series. Episodes will run over an hour, so you can end up with like probably 10 hours by the time it's all done. There's Journey to Ape Island, which is Alexander's movie, like his full-scale, full-budget movie. He's going to Vancouver Island with Jason Hewlett. We're also filming Dogman Legacy while we're doing this On the Trail of UFO shoot, which is Aaron Deese and Shannon LeGros project. And then my final project of the year will be a mini series called Sasquatch Factor. And we're still figuring it out, but the goal is to make it the biggest and best Bigfoot thing I've ever done. That's the goal. We're going to go to Alaska, though. I can tell you that. We're definitely going to Alaska in July. But there will be, we'll be all over the U.S. filming that this year.
Yeah.
So that's the big film stuff. And then I do a series called Smoky Mountain Sasquatch Search on YouTube, and I edit a bunch of other shows that are on there that people probably don't realize I'm involved in. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yeah.
Besides then, wrapping it up.
Yeah.
If you could document one thing that you've never been able to capture on film, I mean, obviously there's like, a Bigfoot in real life or whatever, what would that be?
Probably because my son's obsessed with it, the Flatwoods Monster. That's why my 8-year-old he built a Flatwoods Monster in Minecraft last week. So this morning on the drive to school, we listened to the Flatwoods Monster soundtrack. So yeah, if I could film something, it would be that, so that he would be able to see it for himself.
Amazing. So I like to end with, the name of the show is Broadcasting Seeds, and it's about planting seeds in people's minds, right? And furthering this whole crazy world that we live in and the ideas in it. So what is a seed that you would like to plant?
Geez. That's a good question. You always end the show this way, huh?
Always.
And yeah, this is not the direction I would have expected to go with this, but I'm just going to say it because it's been on my mind lately.
Perfect.
I have been a Christian my whole life, and I have very rarely, if ever, addressed that fact publicly. But I feel like over the last year, I've been a coward in a lot of ways, because I see people that are on another level from me that are willing to be open about it. So if I could do anything, it would just be to say that I wouldn't be here without Christ. I wouldn't be doing what I do, which I love, without him. And so yeah. And honestly, that was a goal of mine. That was like a resolution for this year, was I'm going to be more open about, the fact that I'm not going to dump it on people and expect to change people.
Yeah.
But be open about my own faith and stuff like that. So I think that's the big thing. The other one would just be, man, go do what you want to do, what you have a passion for doing, and figure it out while you're doing it. Don't think you have to have some perfect plan in place for how to do this stuff, because there isn't one. And again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm one of the dumbest people I know. So if I can do it, I believe anyone can do it.
Amazing. Tell everybody again where they can find you.
Smalltownmonsters.com, YouTube. We're on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff too. So we're all over.
Yeah, man, you are. And you punch it in the Google machine in it. Yeah. It's all Small Town Monsters.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you coming on. It's been great to meet you.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I hit record and you laughed like it was nothing. Like 10 years doesn't weigh on your chest. Like all those miles and motel room ceilings never left a fingerprint on your ass. You said you didn't even know it was a movie, till a line wrapped around the block. And that moment you finally saw it, the monster wasn't fear, it was the clerk. And I know that feeling, turning hobbies into hunger, trying to make a life from a spark before it flickers out and goes under. So tell me what you saw when the night got quiet, when the woods got close and the town went still. Was it just a story or something behind it? Something that doesn't care how you feel. We're just ordinary people with extraordinary things, and we carry them like stones in our sleeves. If nobody listens, the record skips, and the truth disappears when we leave. You talked about a graveyard you didn't mean to film, a name at the edge of the frame, and the past creased up through the edit like it was calling you back by name. 3 headstones, one day smallpox took them, and somehow you kept rolling tape, because history doesn't ask permission, it just stays, or it slips away. And I think about the witnesses, handshaking, eyes steady, then I summon a myth that just try to say I'm ready. So tell me what you saw when the night got quiet, when the woods got close and the town went still. Was it just a story with something behind it? Something that doesn't care how you feel. We're just ordinary people with extraordinary things, and we carry them like stones in our sleeves. If nobody listens, the record skips, and the truth disappears when we leave. And I've chased the wire till my throat went dry, and I've watched platforms close their doors, and the world laughs at crappy movies, but they don't know what we're preserving for. I'm not here to steer you, I'm not here to sell you, I'm here to let them speak and let the silence tell you. So tell me what you saw when the night got quiet, And I won't be here without Christ. I won't pretend I ever was. If I'm brave enough to say it out loud, maybe that's the seed that matters most.